Manchester United just drew 2-2 with Leeds United at home in what was a thrilling game for the neutral fan. Now, we could talk about the effectiveness of Leeds United's high press or how United showed fighting spirit to come back from 2-0 down to draw this game. But the most interesting thing that I saw in this game was the revival of one Jadon Sancho. He took his goal really well, but he also looked very, very lively and was playing with real intent for the first time since he joined Manchester United. So in this video, we're going to show you why Sancho was so good at Dortmund and why Erik Ten Hag will revive him back to his best. We'll also show you how Ten Hag has already had a big impact on Sancho's Man United career, as seen by his off-the-bench impact versus Leeds. Now, before we get into the analysis, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your bell notifications so you never miss out on content just like this. Now, I want to start by talking a little about Sancho's stats at Dortmund because I think everyone has seen the compilations of his goals and assists, but not everyone understands the underlying stats behind his world-class form in the Bundesliga. So Sancho moved to Dortmund in the 2017-2018 season when he was just 17 and spent 3.5 seasons there, scoring 44 goals and providing 49 assists in just 144 league games. I think people forget just how special Sancho was at Dortmund because at one time he had more league assists than Kevin De Bruyne and he was just 2 behind Lionel Messi. His 2 most successful seasons at Dortmund were the 2018-2019 season where he got 12 goals and 14 assists in 34 games as an 18-year-old and the 2019-2020 season where he got 17 goals and 16 assists in 32 games as a 19-year-old. Just look at his productivity in front of goal. Almost 1 goal contribution per 90 in the 18-19 season and 1.3 per 90 in the 19-20 season. He was absolutely world class. His shooting stats across those 2 seasons are equally impressive as he scored all those goals with just 1 and 2 shots per 90, getting over half of them on target and scoring 1 goal for every 3 shots he took, which is massively impressive. And for some context, Harry Kane this season is scoring 1 goal every 7 shots he takes, and even Erling Haaland with 25 goals in the season is scoring 1 every 3.5 shots. Looks like he was also overperforming his XG numbers, which shows that his finishing was absolutely on point. His passing stats tell a similar story. He had over 2 key passes per 90, which shows that he was really good at getting into dangerous areas and laying the ball off to a teammate so that they can shoot. He also had 5 progressive passes per 90, which shows that he was consistently passing forward when he was on the ball. And of course, the trend continues with his on-the-ball stats because he had over 60 touches per 90, which shows you his willingness to consistently get on the ball and link the play. He averaged about 5 touches per 90 in the penalty area and attempted between 5 to 7 dribbles per 90, which shows you that he was constantly trying to take on opposition defenders in dangerous areas of their pitch. And probably the most underrated aspect of his game, he completed more than 5 progressive carries per game, which is a measure of how often a player dribbles the ball forward by at least 10 yards per 90 minutes. So Sancho's underlying stats at Dortmund tell us that he was a winger that relied on his passing and dribbling abilities to be a goal threat rather than relying on high shot volume like Antony or Rashford do. So how do these stats compare to Sancho's first full season at United? Let's find out. So Sancho got his big money move to Manchester United in the summer before the 21-22 season, at the same time as Varane and Ronaldo moved to the club. Everyone knows that he didn't have a great first season as his goal contributions were down massively to just 0.28 per 90. But what do his underlying stats tell us? Can we understand exactly why he had such a hard time? We can see that he was taking about the same number of shots, but was relatively worse at converting those shots into goals. As he had fewer shots on target, he was less efficient with his shots, only scoring once every 8. And perhaps the biggest indication of his poor finishing was that he was underperforming his XG numbers, which is a big shift from him overperforming them at Dortmund. So one potential reason for his poor form is him having a tougher time against Premier League defenders or the higher quality of Premier League goalkeepers. His passing stats paint a more interesting picture. While his assists per 90 were down massively, his key passes and progressive passes were quite similar to those at Dortmund. This tells me that his play style didn't really change that much from the Bundesliga from the Premier League. It's just that his output suffered. The prime example of this is Sancho overperforming his expected assists at Dortmund. This meant that his teammates were better than expected at finishing the chances he created for them. Compare this to United last season, and our forwards were generally terrible at taking our chances, as any Man United fan will tell you. So is it really surprising that he didn't get as many assists last season? I don't really think so. His on-the-ball stats make things even more interesting. Even though he had slightly lower touches per 90, he actually had more touches in the opposition penalty penalty area per 90, which shows you that he still maintained that attacking intent that we saw at Dortmund. He did attempt slightly fewer dribbles per 90, but his success rate for them was similar to that at Dortmund. He also carried the ball forward just as often. So after comparing Sancho's stats from Dortmund to Man United, what exactly have we learned? His goal contributions dropped from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, but this has happened for almost every player that makes this move. Just ask Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, Christian Pulisic, or Henrik Mkhitaryan. He walked into Manchester United's worst ever Premier League side in his first season at the club, and he has now played under 4 different managers while dealing with off-the-pitch issues like the pressure of playing for Man United, Ollie's exit, Rangnick's tenure, and of course CR7's Messi departure. Given all of this, his underlying stats are strikingly similar to those at Dortmund. He's still very much the same player. Obviously his output has dropped, but the player is still there. So how exactly can Erik Ten Hag contribute to him getting back to his Dortmund levels? Just put yourselves in Jadon Sancho's shoes for 1 second. You get a big money move to the biggest club in the world and you are expected to be the savior. You're expected to solve our right wing problems and help Ollie make a title run with the likes of Ronaldo and Varane. It's easy to see how it can all become too much for a young 21-year-old man. He's human at the end of the day and no amount of money can prepare you for that level of pressure. And Erik Ten Hag would have seen this from a mile away, because his underlying stats in his first season were similar to those at Dortmund, but he was still not able to generate the end product. So his strategy to get the best out of Sancho was clear. Improve the team as a whole, because bad teams produce bad players, and give Sancho a break so he can get into a better mental and physical space, which will not only get him back to his Dortmund levels, but potentially push him beyond. In his management of both Sancho and Rashford, Erik Ten Hag has shown himself to be an amazing man manager. I always knew that he had the in-game tactics to get the job done by watching his Ajax teams, but I had no idea that he was this good at understanding players and managing their egos. I feel blessed to see him managing Manchester United, and I'm excited to see if he can take this great club back to where it belongs. Now you guys don't have to take my word for Erik Ten Hag's impact on Sancho. Just look at how sharp Sancho looked in this game versus Leeds. In this clip we see Rashford picking up the ball and driving towards Sancho on the left wing. As Sancho picks up the ball, he has 4 Leeds players that are guarding him. As we play along, we see Fred making a run in behind the 3 Leeds players to get into the space near the byline. Sancho sees this before anybody else and plays a perfect pass with the perfect weight into Fred's stride so that Fred can play a first-time cross into the box. But unfortunately, there's nobody making a near post run, which probably Rashford here should have done, and Leeds end up clearing the ball. What we see here is that Sancho is elite at reading the game and making the right decisions at the right time. Since he was about 17 or 18 years old, he's always had the composure to get his head up before making decisions, and this is what made him so good at Dortmund. In this clip, we see Sancho's ability to draw players in and release passes for his teammates at the perfect time. We see Martinez win the ball from a Leeds player and the ball lands at Sancho's feet. As Sancho turns to drive forward, again we have 3 or more Leeds defenders that are ready to guard him. As we play along, Sancho actually drives into the 3 Leeds players, which draws them towards him and opens up this space for Rashford to run into. Sancho then releases the ball at the perfect time for Rashford, which takes 4 Leeds players out of the game completely and draws 2 more defenders towards Rashford, which immediately frees up space for these 3 United players at the edge of the box because there's only 2 Leeds players left to defend. Rashford elects to get to the byline for a cross. The ball takes a slight deflection off the Leeds defender and Pellistri unfortunately isn't able to put a tap-in into the goal. Once again, Sancho's composure on the ball gives him an extra second to think. If I can draw these players towards me, Leeds will be out of their defensive shape and we can make something happen as a team. In our final clip, we analyze Sancho's goal that brought United back to 2-2 against Leeds. We start with Luke Shaw driving the ball towards the goal. He lays it off to Sancho. As Sancho receives it, we can again see 3 or 4 Leeds defenders trying to guard him. Sancho waits and waits for Luke Shaw to get into the space in behind those defenders and releases the ball at the perfect time for him. As Luke Shaw is ready to put a cross into the box, we see Jadon Sancho showing urgency to get into the penalty box just in case, as a gamble, the ball falls to him. And that's why when Luke Shaw's cross is blocked, Jadon Sancho is the first player to get to the ball ahead of these 4 Leeds players that are near him. Sancho takes 1 touch to get the ball out of his feet and shoots with his second. This shot doesn't even have a lot of power, but it goes through 2 Leeds defenders, which gives Meslier very little time to react, and it's a goal. Now, you don't normally associate Jadon Sancho with urgency because you don't see him running around like a headless chicken throughout the game, and he's not really an explosive player. But for this goal, he showed composure again to find Shaw at the right time, and then showed urgency to find himself into the box, and he got rewarded with a goal at Old Trafford. Now, when you have a player that's playing one of his first games for Man United after being out for 3 months due to off-the-pitch issues, it can be a struggle for any manager to fit you back into the team. But for Sancho to come back like this and make such a big impact in a game where Man United absolutely needed it is amazing to see. And credit has to go to Erik Ten Hag for showing patience and giving Sancho the time and space he needed to recuperate. I hope we see Jadon Sancho getting back to his world-class Dortmund levels very, very soon, because I know he can do it. Get in the comments with your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.